It is tough being an Usopp fan in this Elbaf economy. Elbaf was supposed to be his island. The place is tied to Usopp's dream more than almost anywhere else in the story. But so far, it doesn't really feel like that. You got other Straw Hats with their own things. Robin has Saul, Brooke has Gunko, Frankie with the Vegapunk tech, even Chopper is set up to study how Emu's power works, and now Sanji might awaken Conqueror's Haki. Meanwhile, Usopp is just there. So the question isn't just, did Oda forget Usopp? The better question is, why does Usopp feel like a background character in the one place where he wants to become the main character? And weirdly, that might be the point. Because when Usopp finally gets a real moment against Emu, he basically does the stand up and get slapped version of calling Emu a bitch for brainwashing the giants and kidnapping the kids. That matters because this is exactly how Usopp's best moments usually work. He typically starts by looking for the nearest exit, gets pushed past his limit, and then chooses not to run. So no, I don't think Usopp has peaked already where he's currently at. I think Oda may be setting up the same pattern that made Usopp matter in the first place. So here's 3 clues that Oda hasn't forgotten Usopp and Elbaf. Usopp is being put back in the exact place where his courage usually starts, and that place isn't confidence, it's the, how he described it, I'd rather be anywhere else disease. Very contagious. That's why Elbaf matters so much for him. Since Little Garden, Usopp has been chasing the image of a brave warrior of the sea. Dory and Bragi gave him that dream, but Usopp's version of bravery has never been about walking into every fight like Luffy, Zoro, Sanji. Usopp's courage usually starts from the opposite place. He's scared, he's overwhelmed, he looks outmatched. Sometimes he wants to run, but the moment matters because he stays anyways. So if Usopp feels like a mouse fart in Elbaf right now, that doesn't automatically mean he's written out. It may just mean Oda is building toward the emotional setup his best moments always need. Fear first, courage second. We're already seeing that pattern take hold. Usopp is calling out Emu's bullshit, specifically the reliance on dirty, low-level tricks, and who better to call out a fraud than the guy who has been the undisputed king of cheap tricks since the beginning? Elbaf isn't giving Usopp the god Usopp moment right away, it's putting him in the kind of situation where his best moments usually start. Scared, hurt, outmatched, and still choosing not to run. And honestly, this is why he needs good PR right now. So like the video, subscribe, click the bell, and the hype button because the Sniper King agenda is fighting for its life out here. Elbaf may not just be testing Usopp as a warrior, it may be testing him as a storyteller. Because what's important is how Elbaf isn't only just a land of giants, it's also an island built around stories. Even the name points that way. Elbaf, or rather the Elbaf version, is fable spelled backwards. And this arc keeps coming back to the same idea. Old stories, government lies, broken history, Sun God Nika, and truths that survived because people kept passing them down. And the arc is asking what kind of stories people believe, which stories get dismissed, and which stories survive long enough to become history. That's where Usopp fits. He's the Straw Hat built around lies, tall tales, fake bravery, and the hope that one day people will actually believe him. So in an arc about fables, Usopp's liar role feels inevitable and wouldn't make his character uniquely stand out compared to his other character moments in past arcs. In Dressrosa, people believed in Usopp because the situation turned him into God Usopp. In Enies Lobby, the Sogeking persona helped him act like the brave person he couldn't be yet. And those moments matter, but they were still mostly about Usopp proving himself. Elbaf could push that idea into a bigger stage because this country doesn't lack stories, it's drowning in them. But Elbaf also has an uglier story underneath all that. The idea that blood decides worth. Hiruden being rejected because of his mother's foreign blood shows how deep that belief goes. It's not just a family drama, it's a story Elbaf tells itself about who counts as a real giant, a real prince, or a real warrior. That's where Usopp fits. The world government uses lies to control people. Elbaf's old myths can trap people in fear. The traditionalists use bloodline stories to decide who is worthy. But Usopp's dream pushes against all of that. He isn't trying to become brave because he was born special. He's trying to become brave because he keeps choosing it, even when he's scared. So if Usopp gets a payoff here, it may not just be about people believing in him again. It may be about showing why a real storyteller matters in a country where stories have become weapons, cages, warnings, and excuses for prejudice. All of this could be the setup for the Straw Hat whose biggest flaw matches Elbaf's biggest problem. A liar in a land where lies myths, fables, buried truth, and inherited prejudice are already shaping the current conflict. Usopp doesn't just want to feel brave in his own head, he wants to become a brave warrior of the sea, and that kind of dream needs witnesses. Someone has to see him stand his ground while he's scared, because this is when Usopp stops sounding like he's pretending and starts looking like the person he said he would become. That's also why low expectations matter so much for Usopp. His best moments usually start with people doubting him, laughing at him, or expecting him to run. The story strips him down first, so when he chooses courage anyway, the moment hits harder. The story may not be waiting for Usopp to get a new and improved slang shot or a new and improved Usopp hammer. It may be letting the pressure build around the audience that's already here. And what better audience than the Giants themselves? Because the Giants wouldn't be random witnesses for Usopp. These are the people who shaped his idea of bravery in the first place. And that means proving himself in Elbaf would hit differently. Usopp has already been believed before. Dressrosa gave him a whole army of people calling him God Usopp. But Elbaf isn't about being praised by people who misunderstand him. I think it's going to be about being seen by the warriors he spent the whole story trying to become like. And the giant children make that even more interesting. When Luffy and Usopp meet the kids at the Walrus School, they're disappointed because the children weren't the 300-style baby Spartans they expected, but that scene may be doing more than just playing a joke. It shows that Elbaf's next generation is already caught between the old warrior fantasy and a different kind of future. And this matters for Usopp because his dream may have to grow up too. Being a brave warrior of the sea requires more than just being a loudmouth, having a high body count, and a fancy pedigree. Like, significantly more. If Usopp chooses courage in front of Elbaf's children, he could show them a different version of bravery. Being scared, being weak, and still standing up anyway. And now that audience isn't just watching from the sidelines. The Giants aren't being brainwashed, threatened, divided, and forced into fear. That changes the setup. Usopp doesn't need to impress a random crowd, he may need to give courage to the exact people who inspired his dream in the first place. So if Usopp gets his moment here, it won't just be another funny lie coming true, it would be the place where the warriors who inspire him and the kids who may inherit Elbaf after them finally see what Usopp has been trying to become. Can he stand up when he's scared, when stronger people are losing, and when running would make complete sense? That's the kind of moment that would fit the arc because it's asking what kind of courage Elbaf should actually respect. And that's why I don't think Luffy facing Imu 1v1 means the arc is coming to a close and that Usopp has already missed his chance. Of course, that kind of moment can make the arc feel like it's racing towards the end, but One Piece usually doesn't move that cleanly. And Elbaf still has way too many Straw Hat threads sitting there just to rush past. The arc could still be moving into the chaos phase, where the rest of the crew finally gets forced into the roles Elbaf has been building for them. And I think Elbaf is waiting for a bigger payoff for Usopp than just calling Imu out. I want to see that classic Usopp moment. He's the weakest person in the room. He has every reason to flee, and still he becomes the anchor of courage everyone else needs. And that brings us back to something earlier in the series that feels a lot more interesting now, because at the end of Skypiea, we get that famous campfire party scene in chapter 253 with Luffy doing the Nika pose, but the part I want to focus on is Usopp playing the drums in the middle of the celebration. At first, it just feels like a, goofy, fun party detail, but I think if Usopp's role is about giving scared people a reason to stand up, then him playing the drums might matter more than we thought. It may even connect to the bigger picture of what the One Piece treasure could be. And I broke all that down in the video right next to me.